Hey, it's Sparky, Fifer, 1250 AM The Fan, along with our guy Nathan Marzion, streaming live here on 1250 AM The Fan on Twitter, along with at Sparky Radio, and of course on the Odyssey Sports YouTube page. You can download Green and Growing Podcast a couple times a week right there on your Odyssey app, or if you don't have the Odyssey app, which you should, you can download it at any other podcast platform. You download your favorite podcast at. NBA draft, as we record this on Wednesday evening, is coming up tomorrow evening, Thursday evening. And you very well may see Nathan Marzion and I doing a live draft podcast at the conclusion of the draft tomorrow night as well, unless the Bucks have no picks and nothing happens, in which case we'll both be sleeping. Nathan Marzion, let's talk about kind of expectations and kind of things that we could see happening tomorrow night. There's a sense that I get that they, being John Horst, Peter Fagan, Bucks ownership, are looking to shake things up a little bit. Reading Eric Name's piece in The Athletic, he talks about maybe shaking up the middle of the roster, and that might be something that happens going forward. I kind of looked at the Bradley Beal deal, hearing that they were involved and possibly making an offer of maybe they're going to change the top of the roster more than I had expected, one way or the other. What do you think could possibly happen here coming up tomorrow night?
Yeah, so this draft is interesting because I don't know, normally I wouldn't be quite as and I wouldn't be entertaining the possibility as much of the Bucks moving up, but we've seen now rumors of them wanting to possibly trade guys like Grayson Allen, like you said, the middle of the roster guys to potentially move up, and they said they might want to be trying to get a pick between mid-20s, late first until maybe 40, 45. Right now they're sitting at 58. They have the very last pick, which essentially means nothing. So, if they can move up, the interesting thing about this draft is there are at least, we don't know these guys yet, but by the looks of it, there are a lot of guys in that range, the 25 to 45-ish range, that are all higher, not all, but most higher floor kind of role player type of guys that it's more guys to add to a championship team rather than guys that are going to have this crazy upside that could really, you could hit a home run with. It's guys that just have like a pretty proven skill that they're good at, that they can do that. Are they going to be amazing, crazy players? No, but they can come in and potentially be contributors right away. And I think that's why we saw the Nuggets try to get some picks in this draft. They're now up after the trade they made today. I think they have 29, 32, and 37. So they're trying to get into this draft because I think they see that as well, that there's an opportunity here in that range to get, you don't have to give up that much to get a cheap, young role player that really, some of these guys could be pretty good role players. I know there's some wing defenders that the Bucks could use in the, later first, early middle second area. One of them being my guy, Omax Prosper from Marquette. I don't know if he'll fall far enough for us to really be realistic in trying to trade up for him. But, I mean, it's kind of one of those things, too. As the draft happens, if there's, like, if they have a board of, maybe there's these 8 guys that they're like, okay, we really would want to trade up for these guys if they start to fall. And let's say you get out of the first round ends and there's still 5 of those guys on the board for them. Well, then they might say, okay, let's start moving up here to get one of these guys. Whereas if all those guys go off the board, they might just sit back and say, okay, we're not going to try to trade up. But all I'm saying is there is definitely, I think there are more guys than usual in that range, the 25 to 45 range, that could be higher floor players. And again, if you can get someone that is a wing defender, fills a need, and is cheap on a rookie contract and doesn't cost you much to go get, and they're young, I mean, I think that's worth potentially doing if you're going to trade. I think Grayson could get you like an early second-round pick. A couple years ago, the Bucks essentially traded the 30th pick for him, so I'm guessing he's worth an early second this year. And I don't expect them to trade Bobby, but if they did, I know the Pacers had reportedly wanted a power forward, and the Pacers have. That's the other part of this draft. There's like several teams that have multiple picks in that range that are probably going to be trading out. Charlotte has 27, 34, 39, and 41. Indiana has 26, 40, and 55. Memphis has 25, 46, 45, and 56. Portland has 23 and 43. Sacramento has 24, 38, and 54. San Antonio has 33 and 44. Like there's just plenty of teams that have multiple picks there that you're like, okay, I think they'd be willing to trade us one of those picks. Um, and so yeah, I could see it. I could see something like that happening if a team like Indiana really wants Bobby Portis, they need a power forward, and they're willing to give us, the 26th pick. I think that's a trade that we would consider. Give us a little bit of cap space there if we need it or whatever, and um, I think that could be something that happens. But we'll see. I mean, it's nobody really knows.
You talk about San Antonio. There's a report out just before we started that they are trying to get back into the lottery for a second pick in the lottery and trying to get Wemby's teammate from his team he's playing on that he played with since he was in youth league or something. I think they won a championship when they were 13 together, something like that. So San Antonio may try and get 2 lottery picks, one from Wemby and then one other one to try and grab his teammate. And I'm sure that probably is something coming from Wemby's camp of, it'd be really cool if you could help a brother out and get somebody that I've played with and got some chemistry with here. And we can kind of learn together and be teammates together and kind of grow in this thing together. So we'll see if they're able to get that done. Indiana, I don't know if they consider themselves in rebuilder mode or not with Rick Carlisle as head coach, but I think you just got to try and add as much talent as humanly possible. They're not going to win a championship next year, obviously. We've talked about them in the past on a previous podcast in Green and Growing as they're kind of stuck there with where they're at. It doesn't look like they're getting significantly better, and they've been running with the same core of guys for a while now. So I could see them maybe doing a move. I wouldn't advise them to trade for Bobby Portis if I was Indiana, because I don't think that makes you a championship team. I don't think that gets you over a hump or anything of the sort. From the Bucks standpoint, as I've said before, they looked old and slow to me. So, to add another first round pick, a young guy that can come in and replace a Jay Crowder or somebody like that, and add some youth to go along with Marzion Beauchamp, whose role hopefully will expand and grow next year to give him another young guy out there and playing with some of these older guys, I think would be a great idea. Now, the other thing is, if you go to the end of one, like you just brought up about Prosper, they're going to be looking for wings, it appears. And Eric Name pointed that out in the Athletic piece as well, that wing position, that guy that's going to be that defender that's long and athletic, and Prosper can hit the threes from time to time as well, is probably the position they're looking at. They're probably not looking for a backup point guard to Drew Holiday. They're probably not looking for a backup big to Brooke Lopez. So it's probably going to be that athletic wing type player that they're going to probably try and get, is my guess, Nathan.
Yeah, and as I said, there are a few. I've looked at this class, and there are a few of those guys. It's not just like Omax. There's not really just one guy that they're going to try to go up and get. Omax is one. There's a guy named City Sissoko is another one. He'll go probably a little bit later than Omax. Ryan Rupert will probably go a little bit in that range, probably late first, maybe early second. Julian Phillips, another guy. They're all 6'7". They're basically all 6'7", long wing defenders. Is essentially
how many of them that you're naming are juniors or seniors?
I don't know.
I'll be honest with you. If you're telling me high floor guys, and I'm saying I want juniors or seniors at this point, if I'm the Bucks, if this is about now, I want the maturity level of a guy that's been playing basketball for a while, that you don't have to teach constantly about where they're supposed to be and how to play and so forth. So that's kind of what I'd be looking for. If you look at, say, the Sacramento Kings of how they've kind of built their thing, he's only drafting guys that have been playing for at least 2 years of college basketball and going from there, whether that be a redshirt sophomore, whatever the case may be. But he's drafting older guys over there, 20-year-olds or higher. I would think that would be the philosophy of the Bucks versus a Brandon Jennings, versus a Larry Sanders, versus Giannis. Some of these projects that you're drafting to draft somebody, like you said, that can come in and kind of hopefully play right away. And defensively, I think that's going to be part of it. Like you said, that it might be more about what they can do defensively, even more so than what they can do offensively.
Yeah, all those guys I mentioned. So Omax is 21, and then the other 3 that I mentioned are all 19. So they're younger guys, but I think, I don't know, if you're good enough defensively, and I just buy, if they're that good and you buy into them that much on that end, I don't know how much their youth really matters that much to you if you just believe that, okay, these guys are good defenders, these guys have the physical tools we need. I know you, I mean, yes, in our situation, would you probably prefer someone who's a little bit older, more experienced, probably even higher floor than those guys seem to have? Yes, but I do think you can be 19 coming into the draft and still have a decently high floor, in my opinion. Because these guys are all, again, they're all built pretty much the same. They all displayed pretty much the same skill set of being able to be a really good on-ball defender. All of them are decent shooters, and if decent shooting comes over to the NBA for them, they're going to be really good role players because we know they can defend, and then if you can just shoot it half decent, you'll have a decent career. Now, if their shot really tanks and they are below 30% from three or whatever, or really struggling, then okay, that's how, those guys just might not pan out as role players. But none of them seem to have really bad shots. They all seem to be okay shots. Same with Omax. It's like that's not his strong suit, but I think he shot like 34% from three in college. It was decent enough to say, hey, if he can be that good defensively and just shoot, 33, 34%, okay, you can survive in the NBA and you can have a decent career. And a little bit similar to what we had in Marzion last year, where we got a guy that we kind of knew we had defensively, and it's a matter of, okay, does the offense pan out? Is he, does he become a consistent shooter? Does he develop more ball handling skills and a little bit more offensively? We'll see. And that's the other thing too, is maybe if they have a belief that, Marzion can step into this role and really do that, like be the wing defender that they really need, either, this year or next year, pretty soon, then maybe they go a different route. Maybe they don't go for one of these wing defenders and just trust that Marjan's going to be that guy, and we'll go for more of a ball handler. We'll go for something else that we need. But I don't know. In my mind, my immediate need that they've had for the past couple of years is wing defense. So that's kind of what I go to. And again, this class has a few of them. It's a little bit of a deeper wing class than there usually is.
How crazy is it if I suggest to Nathan Marzion, follow him on Twitter, Nathan Marzion, that the Bucks not only trade one, but trade two of their guys to get multiple possible late first-round picks? So maybe Portis, who you've been angling to get traded the whole time. So maybe Portis, and I'm going to say Grayson Allen, because the odds of Pat Connaughton getting traded are probably slim at this point, even though I'd be all for it. But let's say Bobby Portis and Grayson Allen, each one of them goes for a different late round, first round pick. Would that be too much tinkering for youth from your perspective when you're talking about competing for a championship, replacing two vets that kind of know the system, know the ins and outs of the NBA, have seen everything, and replacing them with two young guys in that rotation? Is that too much tinkering?
I wouldn't get super mad at it. Now, first off, I do think if we were going to trade Bobby and Grayson, I'm not sure you'd get two late first. I would probably think you'd get a late first for Bobby, early second for Grayson.
Right,
but still,
let's say that's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, not a huge difference there. But I'm not going to be mad at it. But I do think I don't know. I think that going, too far towards draft picks, youth, rookies, that, yes, you want them to pan out. Everyone gets excited about them when you draft them and there's all this hype around them, but you don't know what they are yet. We do know that Grayson Allen is a good NBA shooter, a 40% NBA shooter. We know that, Bobby Portis is a double-double machine in the NBA, and he can do that at the NBA level. These guys, yes, they look great in college. Yes, they have these traits, and, could they pan out? Absolutely. And, I wouldn't mind taking that chance, but I do. It is something you want to be a little bit cautious about, not going too crazy that direction. I'd probably try to only trade one of those guys. I mean, I don't know. It'd be hard to give up really your only two valuable role players. Maybe, I mean, Pat's valuable, but I just don't see them trading Pat. But your two valuable role players, you're just trading for picks. I don't know. I'd want to at least maybe trade one of them for a pick and then try to trade the other one for like a not proven, but just more of a couple years in NBA player or something like that.
How about this? Adrian Griffin was brought in to be the Bucks head coach, defensive-minded guy, but the one thing that he gets a lot of credit for is what? Player development. And as a Bucks fan, you're like, well, whoop-de-doo-dah. Player development. Oh, that's great. We got a bunch of old dudes. They're as developed as they're probably going to be at this point, other than Beauchamp. You got a bunch of old guys on this team. How much more developed are you really going to get? But if they do go and decide to make a concerted effort to go in the area of we're going to get younger and we're going to rely on him and Terry Stotts and Joe Prunty and Vin Baker and these guys to kind of develop these young guys at a little bit higher rate. And we're going to use the regular season to get them a bunch of minutes and rest Middleton and rest Holiday and rest Giannis a little bit and get them ready to kind of go in the postseason and kind of build this. Because again, I mean, don't lie to yourself. Holiday's old, Middleton's getting older, and Giannis has a couple years, and then you got to figure out where you're going with him. Look at LeBron. I mean, that dude's playing with dinosaurs out in LA. They had to redo half the damn roster at the deadline in order to try and make that thing work. And you still don't know what that's going to look like because, again, he's getting towards the end. He can't do it like he could do it before. You don't want to be in a position, in my opinion, to where in 2 years you go to Giannis and go, okay, sign. And Giannis is like, I love my guys, but dude, what are we going to do in 4 years, 5 years? If I'm signing a 4 or 5 year deal, these dudes are going to be like retired or out of the league. And what am I going to have around me by that point? I just wonder if that comes into play. If you're John Horst and these guys going, okay, can we compete and still be good in the East if we add a couple of young players that we're going to give significant time to next year and still be in a position to compete when we get to the playoffs? Because I find it hard to believe that they watched Milwaukee and watched the Bucks and didn't think that they looked old and slow to them while they were watching it. If I saw it, I don't know how they couldn't have seen it.
Yeah, I mean, there definitely was some of that, and I don't know. I think it's one of those things where, you know, if you gave me the option of trading for these young guys and trading for rookies and relying more on rookies and player development and all that, the thing is, you're not doing it with the hope that any of these guys are going to pan out and be anything special. You're doing it in a role player spot where you're just hoping that they can be a contributor.
Yep.
So when you're only looking at role players, you know, potentially, now again, some of these guys could randomly turn out to be amazing and whatever, but you're not going to predict that to happen. So if we're just looking at role players, I would rather just go the route of trying to trade. Like if I had the choice of trading, you know, Bobby Portis for the 26th pick or trading Bobby Portis for Dorian Finney-Smith, I would rather just have Dorian Finney-Smith because to me, the guy I get with the 26th pick, I'm hoping can give me impact like Dorian Finney-Smith would, essentially. You know, could he be better? Yes. But I would just take what Dorian Finney-Smith gives you, which is a solid role player. And so, I don't know. I'm not looking at super high upside with my role players. I'm not looking at, you know, again, the whole player development thing of trying to take the time to build them up and you know, with Beauchamp. I didn't love the Beauchamp pick at the time because I was like, I feel like best case scenario, he just becomes a role player down the road. And I feel like you either could have traded that pick for a role player or just, you know, done something differently with it to make it maybe try to get someone who had a bit of a higher ceiling. And I don't know. When it comes down to the role players, I'm not as high on getting these young guys that you almost have to build up to become decent players. It's like, I don't want to be like, you should be with when you have Giannis, when you have a championship team, everyone you bring in for the most part should already be a decent player, you know, almost everyone. Now you can use it, you know, again, if they go and trade a draft pick tomorrow, I'm not going to be mad. I'm going to be perfectly fine with that because that's just one guy. But, you know, as we talked about, if you're going to go trade Bobby, trade Grayson, trade Pat for picks, okay, all of a sudden you're just left with all these guys you're hoping to just become role players when you already had role players to begin with.
Well, they trade that player, they get that pick, and they draft an international guy they stash. Then what's the reaction from Nathan Marzion?
That'd be dumb. Why are you you have Giannis, you're not stashing, you're going in right now. Like every year needs to be like, and I think people have this mindset that the Bucks, you know, Chris and Drew are going to be gone pretty soon, and you know, Brooke, and we need to draft a guy that we're going to build up to be the next guy behind, you know.
But what's the window? The window's what? 3 years?
No,
4 years.
The window with this core, yes.
Yeah, with Chris and Brooke and Drew, it's probably like 3 years, something like that, 3 or 4 years.
But people think that, okay, this means you need to draft someone to build up to be the next Chris or the next Drew or whatever. No, you don't. You can go sign a guy 3 years from now because you're going to have cap space. If you lose Drew, you lose Chris. If you lose Brooke, you're going to have cap space to go sign a new person. And you're always, for me, when you have a Giannis and you have a championship player and a championship, that alone is going to make you pretty good, just having Giannis. I'm never trying to just get youth and build everything up. I want to just be good all the time. I want to
Sure.
be, I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, I'll draft these guys, these young guys, and could it pan out and could we be, could these two guys next to Giannis become amazing and we turn out to be a dynasty? Yes. But there's the risk of them not panning out and everything just crumbles. I would rather just, as you go, sign guys that are, maybe they're older. I don't really care. Just, I'd rather have older good players than younger unproven players. That could be great, but could be bad. That's how I would operate when you have a star like this, is just you plug and play as you go. You're not kind of planning for, okay, who's going to be the second guy 4 years from now. No, we can figure that out when we get there. We'll have, if we really lose Chris and we lose Drew at that time, we need a second guy. Well, at that point, we will have the space to sign a second guy, and we'll be able to get someone that we know is good because we've seen it before and they're a free agent, and we can just get them rather than drafting someone hoping that they pan out. And again, same with these role players. I want to have a couple young role players. I like that they have Marzion. I'd like to see them go get someone tomorrow if they can. But you still want to have those guys that you just know are good. You know what they give you. You know they're reliable. Are they going to be anything special? No, but it's just like you know what they're giving you. And so, I don't know. Some people just seem to get a little too attached to youth, and I don't know. When you have Giannis, to me, I'm not going crazy for youth. I more just want good players.
He is Nathan Marzion. Follow him on Twitter, Nathan Marzion. Follow me at Sparky Radio. Don't forget, as we live stream this bad boy here on Wednesday evening, you can always watch the live stream right there on the 1250 AM The Fan Twitter account, or at Sparky Radio on Twitter, or on the Odyssey Sports YouTube page, Green and Growing Podcast. You can also download the Green and Growing Podcast, of course, on that Odyssey app, which you should have. And if you do have, and you're a Brewers fan, you can go listen to the Tim Dillard interview. I do a weekly interview with him each week for 1250amthefan.com. Go check that out. Talk to a lot of different stuff, including a player survey in The Athletic by a bunch of MLB players. That was very interesting. So you can check out that interview as well. All right, let's move on to topic number 2. CP3, baby. Would you want the Bucks to get involved in this Bradley Beal trade to get CP3? We just had Toby Altizer on from 106.7 The Fan out in Washington, D.C., former producer and host here at The Fan back in the day when we had local shows. And he was talking about the fact that Wizards fans, good. Pretty much saying, adios, Bradley Beal. Good luck to you. See ya. They wanted out of that contract and wanted to get to a full rebuild. We'll get to Porzingis, who apparently is on the move, another big contract in D.C. With our next topic. But this Beal deal still isn't done because apparently CP3, who found out while on an airplane to New York, apparently they're trying to get him to a different team so he doesn't get stuck with the Wizards. We'll see if that happens or doesn't happen. The question is, would you want the Bucks to get involved in this deal to potentially go get themselves CP3? And again, I'm not getting into numbers and contracts and all that nonsense. I'm just pretty much asking, would you want them involved to try to add CP3 to what they have? Nathan Marzion, your thoughts?
Now, the contract does matter in this because,
well, of course it does. But everybody watching this or listening to the podcast doesn't have a computer in front of them to start figuring out the CBA rules.
Yeah, but I mean, it's for the CP3 thing, it's pretty simple. They either could sign him to a min, or they sign him for $5 million if they keep their tax pyramid level. So it'd be one of those two options. And so when I look at it that way, I'm like, yes, I would take him for either of those two options if they can make it happen. We talked about this a little bit, I think, in another earlier episode, but it's like, if I can get him that cheap and he's a point guard you can put next to Drew, move Drew over to shooting guard, we need more of a pure point guard, ball handler, floor general. CP3 is one of the, better ones to ever play the game, and I know he hasn't won anything and I know all that stuff, but it's like, if you can get a guy that averages 10 assists and 2 turnovers a game, for $5 million or possibly a minimum, then yes, I would do it. Absolutely. I don't really see the downside in doing it. So for that contract, yes. Now, if we had money to spend elsewhere and we were going to go give him, I don't know, double-digit million or 15 million, I don't know, whatever it is, then I would say no. But for what the Bucks have to get him, if they did get him, yes, I'd be happy.
I don't have any inside information on what I'm about to say. I just get a bad vibe about this dude. And listen, I'm a big PBA guy, bowling guy. Got my spare time bowling podcast. And he and the PBA have done a great things. Chris Paul charity bowling event that they've done for quite a while. He's big into bowling and all that, so he's done a lot for the PBA tour with the publicity that he gives them. So I love him for that reason. My bad vibe comes from the fact of how many teams has this dude bid on now? Where by the time it's all said and done, it always ends up not all that great, and he ends up moving on somewhere else, and it works for the first couple of years, and then all of a sudden it doesn't go so well, and we move on somewhere else. Now, I heard one report that says maybe KD and him weren't the best of friends, and KD behind the scenes was the one kind of lobbying to get Bradley Beal in there. No idea, couldn't tell you. These are just the reports that are coming out. The one thing I would be pissed off about, based on the one report I saw, and I talked about this to Toby Altizer, man, if I'm Chris Paul and I find out that Kevin Durant is calling and trying to recruit somebody else, knowing damn right well that they're about to trade me, yeah, I'd be hot. I'd be livid. You got players trying to get you out of there and recruiting other players. First of all, Bradley Beal is not a point guard. No. So it's not even like they're getting a guy to come in that's younger, that's a point guard that can replace CP3 in that position. They recruited a shooting guard to come in and play, and just to get rid of CP3 at this point. So that's a little bit concerning to me as well. When he was in Oklahoma City, that was impressive. He had a bunch of young dudes. They rallied around him, and he helped to get them better. So that was good. My only thing with this is if you put him with Drew, good dude. Never heard a bad word about Drew. Middleton, as far as I know, good locker room guy. Giannis is Giannis. Does he mesh in? Does he fit in? Does he get down with what this locker room is? Because whatever vet you trade for, if you trade for a vet, right, they have to understand that these three, it's their locker room. Plain and simple. Don't care who you are. This is their locker room, and you kind of got to fit in where you can and kind of go from there. This isn't you coming in being big honcho. I'm Chris Paul. I'm going to run the show because I'm Chris Paul. They won a championship. This is their locker room. That's my only fear in all of this. And people can poo-poo chemistry and poo-poo all that stuff, but that's a little bit concerning for me as far as how he gel with everybody else.
Yeah, I understand that. And again, I would say that our team is probably, I think, better suited for him than maybe those other teams were, or the team around him. The teammates he played with, maybe, again, he played with Harden. He's played with KD. Those guys, I mean, I love KD, and Harden's a really good player too, but it's like, I don't know, those guys I don't think they bring a very strong winning culture. I don't think they bring that type of thing that maybe like a Giannis and Chris and Drew now do,
sure,
coming fresh off a championship where, I don't know. I just think that there's a little bit of a different culture there, and I think, I've never really, I don't think CP3's ever really made his team much worse. Like, again, I don't think he made the Rockets worse or really hurt the Rockets ever. It was like, I think that was a little bit more on Harden. And he played for the Clippers. I don't think he ever really, that team, they had Doc Rivers as the coach, and I don't think they were ever really a championship team to begin with. So I don't know. I still just believe that if I can get, when I look at it and say the Bucks need a ball handler, a true point guard, in my opinion, to put next to Drew, and I think that could unlock Drew's offense a little bit by taking some pressure off of him. And you can get a guy, if they can, for a minimum or $5 million that has, is one of the better floor generals the game has seen, and again, puts up those averages of like 10 assists and 2 turnovers every night, then I would definitely be willing to take that small chance of, okay, it doesn't work out quite enough. But again, you're not paying him that much, so it's not like it's going to completely blow up in your face. I'm willing to take the chance, and I would try to get him.
All right, let's go to the last topic, and that was the trade that was done earlier today, or a trade that's being worked on. I probably should clarify this. It involves the Celtics, Wizards, and Clippers. Kristaps Porzingis goes to Boston. Then you've got Malcolm Brogdon going to the Clippers, which I just talked about might mean the end of Chris Paul going to the Clippers, you would assume. And Marcus Morris and draft compensation, which we've learned now is a Clippers first-round pick tomorrow night at 30, will be headed to Washington, according to the reports by Sharania and Wojnarowski. First question I have is, what does this do for Boston? Because they're the one team, even with Miami doing what they did next year, we're still going to be talking about it's Boston and Milwaukee. I guarantee that's going to be the narrative. What does that do for Boston against the Bucks getting Porzingis?
I mean, they definitely needed, I think, a big you had Horford, but he's obviously getting older and started to lose a step during the playoffs and end of the year last year. So they get, you get Porzingis, who obviously he can space the floor. The dude's like 7'4" or whatever he is. And I mean, defensively, he's not great. Obviously, he can protect the rim a little bit and he can block some shots given he's that tall. But I don't know. It's an interesting trade. I don't know for certain that it makes the Celtics a ton better. I think it gets them a little bit better, but it definitely makes them very different. They're losing a ball handler in Brogdon, which is interesting because like ball handling is one of their biggest needs, and they're kind of trading ball handling for a big. And Brogdon was one of their best shooters last year as well, and sixth man of the year he won. So I mean, it's not like they're getting Porzingis for nothing. Like I see a lot of people acting like they're getting him for nothing. Do I think it's a pretty good deal for them? Yes, but there is a trade-off there. They're trading something that was very valuable to them last year, and they're also, I think, giving up Gallinari as well, who didn't play for them last year, but he was going to be a guy that played this year. And so they're going to have their big. I don't know how much I trust Porzingis to be in like a switching scheme and be out on the perimeter defending as he probably will have to in their defense, or they will want him to in their defense. So that'll be interesting to see just how he is defensively, because I know he's not the quickest out on the perimeter. He's not the most agile guy, but he is kind of mobile for a big. He's pretty mobile and can get out there. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how well he does defensively, because that's going to be the big thing. We know what he can give you offensively. It's just a matter of defensive stuff.
I just thought of something. Maybe it's crazy. Do you think Boston's angling to get Paul and get into that three-way deal to get Chris Paul?
I mean, I saw CP when they talked about the teams he could go to. Like he's an obvious fit there, but I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, it would make sense for them to go try to get him, because that's kind of the one thing they need is, again, it's kind of similar to us, but I think even more than us, they need ball handling, because I mean, it's like their guards are, they've got Jaylen Brown, who isn't a great ball handler. You've got Tatum. You've got Marcus Smart, who's not really a point guard, not like that. You lost Brogdon now, and you've got Derek White. Like, none of these guys are ball handlers. None of these guys you're at least ball handlers that you want being the primary ball handler for the majority of a game. So I could see them maybe trading one of their bigs now to go that behind Porzingis to get a point guard instead. They might try to sign and trade Grant Williams, because it doesn't sound like they're going to be able to bring him back. It'll be interesting. And it'll also be interesting to see what they do like with Porzingis as far as a contract. Do they sign him right away, or are they just going to play it out on the 1-year deal?
That's what I'd do.
That's what I would do too, but I don't know. It'll just, because if they sign him, all of a sudden you're looking at, if they sign him for $30 million a year, it's like you're going to be so capped after those top three guys with how much they're making. It's like you're going to have nothing to give the rest of that team.
That's the other thing, though, and I've brought this up in other podcasts. Jaylen Brown for Lillard. I'm telling you, I still think if I'm Boston, I'm calling Portland to see. I'm seeing. Because if I got Lillard and Tatum, with all due respect to Jaylen Brown, that's a hell of a lot better than Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. And now you've got a big back there as well in Porzingis. I feel better about that if I'm Boston, to get more consistent scoring and a leader that could probably, Jason Tatum might learn something from, on that floor with him and in that locker room with him. Not that Lillard's won a championship, but he's been around a while longer. He's a respected vet, I think, around the NBA. Now, I don't know if Lillard, he's hard to read whether or not he wants to be there or doesn't want to be there. I can't figure out. It's hard to figure out what the hell Portland is doing to try and help him at this point, too. But if I'm Boston, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get me a dynamic guard to go with Tatum. And that makes the most sense to me, because even with all the Ja Morant crap going around, I can't imagine Memphis moves Ja Morant. So he's there, and they'll just deal with whatever comes, his 25-game suspension or whatever. But Lillard seems to be the one guy that you might be able to go snag if you're willing to give up enough to go get him.
Yeah, I don't see Portland giving up Lillard to get Brown. I think if they're getting Brown, I think they're doing it with the purpose of pairing him with Lillard and trying to give up the number 3 pick and Anthony Simons and something like that, rather than getting Brown to be kind of your number 1 guy. Because then I feel like they're just in a similar-ish position to where they are now. You'd have a younger star, but your star isn't as good, and so you're kind of just in like no man's land.
Yep.
So I think I think it's either they're going to try to either get Brown to pair with Lillard and really go for something, or they're going to trade Lillard and just get, picks or get, I don't know, just whatever they, cap space. Doesn't matter, but just really blow it up. But it sounds like they want to go more all in and try to either trade the third pick and Simons or do something to get guys alongside Dame. But yeah, Dame would absolutely make sense there. There's there's tons of places where Dame would make sense. The problem is it just never seems like there's a trade that really works. And that's kind of why these rumors always circulate every year. And then you're kind of like, okay, the trade doesn't really exist there's not really a perfect trade. So he's just going to stay there and it's all going to happen again next year. So
the other thing I'm kind of curious about here, and I've been refreshing Twitter and looking at my phone while we've been live streaming. Nothing on Chris Middleton today? Shouldn't we have heard something on Chris? Isn't it today that
it is
Middleton today should opt out? And okay, I'm opting out. Everybody, look at me, and we're all like, "Oh yeah, okay, yeah, fine." And we move forward, but I still don't see anything. I just refreshed Sham Sharania again to see if I found something there. I don't see anything there. I haven't looked at Woj here in a couple of minutes. Let me click on his Twitter account. Pretty sure there's nothing there either. No. Still nothing.
It is today. Now I will say no news.
Eric name
to me is
anything?
To me, no news is good news, because if he had accepted it, it would come out already that he accepted his player option. That's happening now. If nothing's come out, that has to mean he just hasn't accepted it yet. So if he doesn't accept it by the next 4 hours, okay, then I don't think he's accepting it, and he's becoming a free agent, which is what we want. So, and then he'll sign hopefully on as I've been saying, like a $30 million a year deal once free agency opens, around there, 30 to 35. I don't know. We'll see. But that's, I think, what's going to happen. And some of it might be also just like they know that it's kind of more of a formality for them. Like I think the Bucks kind of know and already have planned out what's happening here. I don't think they're not sitting here waiting on a decision from Chris right now. I think they talked about this a while ago. They said, they came to some agreement. This date is more of just, okay, this is the official date that is going to have to pass. Maybe they're just like, we're not even going to announce that he's not accepting it. We're just going to let the date pass, and then they'll figure out that, okay, he's not accepting it. But I don't know. I think it's 99% likely that he is not accepting his player option.
I would agree. I don't think he will accept the player option either. If he does, what then?
Then we cry. No, we if he accepts, it basically means Brooke Lopez is probably gone at that point.
I had to say it because I knew I was going to have a good response to that one. That was really good. Follow Nathan Marzion on Twitter at Nathan Marzion. Follow me at Sparky Radio. Like I said, tomorrow night, once the draft is done, providing the Bucks do something, we very well may do another podcast tomorrow night, live stream that one as well. You always catch live streams on the Odyssey Sports YouTube page at 12:50 a.m. The Fan and at Sparky Radio. Download this wonderful podcast a couple times a week. This week, actually, we'll have 3 if we end up doing the show tomorrow night on your Odyssey app or wherever you download your favorite podcast. At Nathan Marzion. It was fun. Can't wait to see what happens with the Bucks coming up tomorrow night. And of course, Nathan Marzion, you have a good rest of your evening and sleep well.
You too.
Oh, look at that. See, man, this is good stuff. Have a good one. Toodles.